remain standing for the national prayer, which is the second stanza of the national anthem. O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and living just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice reign. Thank you very much. Amen. Please be seated. The chairman of this occasion, former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, the chairman of Nigeria Governors Forum, chief host, author of Unfinished Greatness, and governor of Ekiti State, H.E., Governor Kayode FAYEMI, and his lovely wife, Her Excellency Erelu Bisi FAYEMI. Governors here present, I see His Excellency Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Governor of Lagos State. I'd like also to greet and welcome the Deputy Governor of Ekiti State, His Excellency Otumba Bisi Egbeyemi, members of the National Assembly here present, members of the Federal Executive Council here present. I did see Otumba Adebayo. I also saw Sharon Ikazo, Honorable Minister of State for Environment, heads of government and extra-ministerial departments, captains of industry, members of the Ekiti State House of Assembly, commissioners from Ekiti State, members of the diplomatic corps, my lords spiritual and temporal, lovers of the Nigerian nation, chairman of the Ekiti State Traditional Council, and other royal majesties here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a wonderful day to be present in a wonderful nation of mixed heritage, cerebral minds, and a cultural diversity like no other. Welcome to a book presentation that envisions a new Nigeria. Welcome to the sheer audacity of a book that speaks of hope, that speaks of tomorrow, that speaks of unfinished greatness. My name is Eugenia Abu. I'm a broadcaster, multimedia strategy expert, and writer, and I shall be your guide today. A gentleman who is also an elder statesman, former head of state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, convener of Nigeria Praise, a true believer in Nigeria. Permit me, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome the very distinguished chairman of this occasion, the deeply respected General Yakubu Gowon, for his welcome remarks.
A doctorate in political science from the University of Warwick, Coventry, England. He is the longest serving head of state of Nigeria. Yakubu Gowon joined the Nigerian Army in 1954 and received his commission as a second lieutenant on the 19th of October 1955. Trained in the prestigious Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, United Kingdom from 1955 to 1956, Staff College, Camberley in the UK in 1962, as well as the Joint Staff College, Latimer in 1965, he advanced to battalion commander rank by 1966 after seeing action in the Congo as part of the United Nations Peacekeeping Force in 1960 to 1961 and in 1963. In January 1966, he became Nigeria's youngest military chief of staff at the age of 31. A Nigerian nationalist and a believer in the unity and oneness of Nigeria, Gowon founded his own organization in 1992 called the Yakubu Gowon Center, an organization which works on issues in Nigeria such as good governance as well as infectious disease control, including HIV/AIDS, guinea worm, and malaria. Furthermore, Yakubu Gowon is also involved in the guinea worm eradication program as well as the HIV program with the Global Fund of Geneva. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome General Yakubu Gowon, retired.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you for that flattery. I was 31, not 41. Thank you. Well, the protocol, Mr. Chairman, that's me. Your Excellency, the Governor of Ekiti State, and your dear wife, Governor FAYEMI, sorry. Your Excellencies, my lords, temporal and spiritual, I think, let me take this one off. I think that is probably better. Your Excellencies, my lords, temporal and spiritual, Your Highnesses, eminent and distinguished participants, the keynote speaker, the reviewer, and panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to be here with you all today to share the presentation of Unfinished Greatness, Envisioning a New Nigeria, a book by my young and highly cerebral friend, Dr. John KAYODE FAYEMI, the Governor of Ekiti State. One thing I can safely say by way of an opener is that I find the title of the book quite interesting, for it speaks to two major issues that Nigerians are concerned about. First is the question of why Nigeria, with all her potentials, has not attained greatness. I think Nigeria has done well so far since independence. As an individual, I believe that Nigeria is a country marked for greatness. That is the reason why, as the convener of Nigeria Praise, prayer ministry, Nigeria Praise, I led like-minded individuals and all groups to pray without ceasing for the good of our land. Regardless of the diverse difficulties we have, social, economic, political, religious, even cultural, that we have been grappling with since independence, our country shall yet attain the greatness that we all want it to be to have, which is the ideal for which every nation aspires, regardless of its position on the development index. The notion of greatness is evolutionary, though the pace can be made to go a bit faster. Unfinished greatness, therefore, speaks to a determination to remain focused on our goal of building a great nation where peace, unity, justice, and security reigns. The second notion of envisioning a new Nigeria addresses the leadership question. Our country may not have got this right for much of our 62 years as an independent nation. But I think we've all done our best. But this should not undermine our search for quality leadership, the kind with a mindset that sees further than even the 21st century. That is for you, younger one. We speak of leadership that seeks to make our unity in diversity work. We speak of leadership that makes our borders, internal and external, safe for everyone. We speak of leadership with determination to eradicate poverty, disease, and ignorance in the land, and we speak of leadership that is concerned with making democracy work in a manner that makes citizens to truly enjoy its dividends. Broadly, we speak of leadership that makes Nigerians extremely proud of their green passports. I suspect that Governor FAYEMI or JFK, beg your pardon, no, not John F. Kennedy, but JKF, to his admirers, must have been moved to ponder these issues from his vantage position as a two-time governor of his state and chairperson of the Nigerian Governors Forum, NGF. I have associated with him for several years, and I remember when he joined us at our Nigeria Praise in Ekiti when he was seeking to be governor, and we prayed for him. He prayed with us for the country as well. And thank God he became the governor. Yes, I have associated with him for several years and seen his determination to make public service work in the best interest of the citizenry. This is the reason I find it easy to accept his invitation to various functions, and he also came to speak for me on my 85th birthday. It is my way of supporting and challenging him to do more, not just because he has the capacity and vigor of middle age to do more, but especially so that he places himself on the right side of history. Well done. Well, my duty as chairman of this event is not to speak for too long and not to take over the duties of other people here. But even if I had wanted to, the demands of old age will prevent me from doing so. And my training as an officer also imposes a responsibility that I keep things short and sharp. like the rest of you, I'm here to enjoy the presentation of a good book written from the perspective of a fertile mind. I'm confident that the keynote speaker, Professor Adebayo Olukoshi, will share his vast experience of global issues of governance and lay the ground for the book reviewer, Dr. Joe Abba. Did I pronounce it correctly? As well as the panelists to oblige us their robust views on how well Governor FAYEMI has performed in writing this book. It is not always that a sitting governor will literally write an examination that is publicly marked by an array of eggheads as are lined up here today. If at the end of the proceedings you are convinced, and I know that you will be convinced, that the governor has passed very well, shall we give him a distinction? Then you have no excuse whatsoever to leave this hall without a copy of the book. And authors deserve to be encouraged. And honestly, don't allow the book reviewer and the panelist to tell you that, oh yes, now we've had all that matters and therefore will not buy the book. Please make sure you buy the book, not only for yourself, but if you can, for your children, for your friends, and for various institutions that will help to guide them as they grow to become leaders of tomorrow. Well, I think I've got to stop here to allow others to play their role. Thank you all for coming, and I'm really impressed with the turnout here today. And I understand that this is also, is it Zoomish and virtually? Well done. And to all of you on Zoom or on virtual, thank you for tuning in and enjoy this great occasion. God bless you all. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Eugenia.
His Excellency, former head of state, convener, Nigeria Praise, the very soft-spoken, very distinguished chairman of this occasion, former head of state, General C.O.N. As always with him, he's a believer of Nigeria. And he says, in terms of development, in terms of greatness, there is much to be done, but much has been done. And the pace may look slow, but we are on our way. Another round of applause for the former head of state and chair. As it is with him, he was exemplary and disciplined. Having described the book as a good book written from the perspective of a fertile mind, I would like to crave your indulgence before I introduce their excellencies here present to introduce some of Nigeria's finest minds gathered here today. We have our keynote speaker, Professor Adebayo Olukoshi. Please be upstanding, sir. A very fine mind. We have our reviewer, Dr. Joe Abba, a very fertile mind. We can't see you. Where are you, sir? There he is. We have on the panel Mr. Waziri Adiyo, one of Nigeria's finest minds. And we have Yemi Adamulekun, one of Nigeria's leading young, fine minds. And we have Indi Kato, Executive Director, Dindari Africa, who is also a panelist. And we have Hamzat Bilawal, Founder, CEO, Connected Development. All of them, some of Nigeria's finest minds. Let's give them a round of applause as we prepare for the panel ahead. I'd like at this point to introduce and greet His Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, Governor Sanwo-Olu. You're welcome. It's good to see you, sir. I'd like to welcome and greet the Kano State Governor, His Excellency Alhaji Umaru Kanduje. Welcome, sir. I'd like to greet and welcome Right Honorable Comrade Philip Shuaibu, Deputy Governor of Edo State, representing His Excellency Godwin Obaseki, Governor of Edo State. I'd like to greet and welcome Mr. Moses Ekbo, Deputy Governor of Akwa Ibom State, representing the Governor of Akwa Ibom State. I'd like to welcome and greet the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs, Dame Pauline Talon, who is here with us. I'd like to greet and welcome the Honorable Minister of Trade and Investment, Otumbani Adebayo, who is here with us. The Honorable Minister of State Environment, Ms. Sharon Kazo, is also here with us. We'd like to thank her, and I will continue to make the recognitions as we go along. You must forgive me because the masks make it quite difficult to see people that easily. But as the notes come to me, be assured that I would recognize you. But I would also like to state here and now that everybody who has come in here for Dr. Kayode FAYEMI is a very special guest. Please give yourselves a resounding Abuja round of applause. Thank you for coming. I'd like at this point to open up the goodwill messages, and I would like to call on Kabiesi, His Royal Majesty Adejuwon Gabriel Ayodele, Chairman of Ekiti State Traditional Council and the Onishan Official. Your Royal Majesty. I'd like to announce the arrival of the representative of His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. It's represented today by the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari. Your Royal Majesty, sir.
Your Excellency, the chairman of this occasion, Your Excellency, the representative of the President, permit me to stand on already established protocol. Today is a great day in the history of our country, with the book being launched today, titled Unfinished Greatness, Envision a New Nigeria. Before we can say something is unfinished, it means that we have started something. And we can know this country, Nigeria, amalgamated in the year 1914. Thereafter, we have our independence in October 1960. We have found through many leaders which have started something in this nation. And the greatness have not yet finished. And this is our leader. If we are to begin to mention them, we know that we have our Prime Minister then. Thereafter, we have our chairman that does chairman this occasion today. They have tried their own best too, but the greatness is yet unfinished. And this program that we are gathering together this morning to launch this book, which titled Unfinished Greatness, Envision a New Nigeria. At least we thank God that God has given the wisdom to the writer who will be on foot today. And I pray as we are looking forward for a new dawn in this country, it will come to pass in the mighty name of Jesus. And one thing about the book, like I will congratulate the writer of this book, Dr. John KAYODE FAYEMI, the governor of Ekiti State, who writes this particular book. And I want to liken his case to a case of Joseph in the Bible, who interpreted the dream of the Pharaoh. That particular period, they said that who will now implement this particular program, that dream that already interpreted. They now say, Joseph, you are going to be the one that will implement it. I pray the greatness will come very soon, when the writer will be called upon to come and implement the new dawn he has for this country. Thank you. God bless you.
Joseph in the Bible, implementing greatness. When something is not finished, it means that it is remaining. From the wise words of the chairman of the Ekiti State Traditional Council, Kabiesi, His Royal Majesty, Adejuwon Gabriel Ayodele, would like to thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom. Let's hear another round of applause for him. I've been mandated by the chairman of the Governors Forum and the chief host to invite a gentleman who rules one of Nigeria's most populous states, who rules a state where the federal government's rail station just kicked off on its way further in and further out. Please help me welcome His Excellency, the Governor of Kano State, Alhaji Umar Ganduje.
Thank you. Auzu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. The chairman of the occasion and the former head of state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, General C.O.N, my colleagues, the executive governors of various states who are here, but all of you, peace be upon you. Indeed, this is a very important occasion, and it is an occasion where we witness intellectuals in governance, intellectuals in politics, because this occasion symbolizes the role, the active participation of an academician in governance. There's no doubt this is a welcome development. It is always important for intellectuals to take active role in politics, because they are always great thinkers. They are always make a good forecast. They analyze conflicting issues and try to find out the areas of convergence and the areas of divergence. In politics and governance, there's always conflicting variables. So I congratulate him. In fact, some people are advocating that governance should only be for intellectuals. But this is contrary to democracy. But we have seen how important it is. Unfortunately, in developing countries, intellectuals are afraid of governance, are afraid of delving into active politics, because they regard politics as a dirty game. But politics is not a dirty game. Also, some think intellectuals, when they delve into politics, they result into too much analysis. And sometimes people say too much analysis leads to paralysis. I wonder if there is correlation between intellectualism and good governance. I do congratulate you. Thank you, and God bless.
Areas of convergence and areas of divergence. For a man who has sat in the saddle in politics, he understands what that means. He has spoken on behalf of the Governors Forum and on behalf of governors here present. And I have information that the European Union delegation head is here, and he does have a goodwill message. And we'll take a very short goodwill message from him, and then we shall proceed. If that information that I have is correct, can we have the gentleman to be upstanding and to move forward towards the podium of the Master of Ceremony for that goodwill message? Do we have the EU delegation's representative here? Okay, we shall proceed. For members of the diplomatic corps, we will be having His Excellency the Ambassador of the United Arab Emirates to speak on behalf of members of the diplomatic corps. Is he here? Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Please make your way to the podium. Please encourage him as he makes his way to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very good morning. A very good morning to Your Excellencies. Your Excellency, Dr. KAYODE FAYEMI, the Governor, the Executive Governor of Ekiti State, Your Excellency, General Yakubu Gowon, the former Head of State of Nigeria, Your Excellencies, Executive Governors, and Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to speak at the book launch of a friend of mine and a friend of the UAE, Dr. KAYODE FAYEMI. Dr. Fayemi's achievements as an academic advocate for representative governance, progressive governor, then federal minister, that has revamped a critical sector of Nigeria's economy, and his leadership of the Nigerian Governors Forum towards the economic development of the Nigerian states makes him worth listening to and reading from him. His book on Nigeria and its path to greatness reflects our own commitment in the UAE to Nigeria. We believe that trade, political, and cultural partnerships between both of our friendly countries has borne fruit and will continue to do so as a result of the people and leaders of this beautiful country and their relentless drive towards building a better nation. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to extend my warm regards to the chairman of the occasion, General Yakubu Gowon, as well as the writer of the foreword, General Abdul Salam Abu Bakr, the keynote speakers, and the members of the panel. The presence of this stellar mix of national leaders, academics, technocrats, and civil society leaders at today's event reflects the journey of Dr. FAYEMI's successful achievements. I look forward to the deliberations and discussions today alongside reading the book. Thank you and congratulations, Your Excellency. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
His Excellency, Dr. Fahad Al-Haq, UAE Ambassador to Nigeria, who has been in the forefront of building bridges between Nigeria and the United Arab Emirates and continues to speak well on the side of Nigeria wherever he goes. Your Excellency, it's always good to see you and always good to hear you. Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you very much indeed. I'd like to quickly recognize a representative of the Ondo State Governor, His Excellency Arakunrin Rotimi Akeredolu, Mrs. Olateju Bamidele, who is the State Commissioner for Regional Integration and Diaspora. Madam, where are you? Thank you for coming. I'd like to recognize the Honorable Minister of State, Labor and Productivity, Mr. Festus Keyamo, SAN. There he is. The former governor of Ogun State, a distinguished Senator Ibikunle Amosun, Ogun Central Senatorial District. Former Senate President, His Excellency Senator Ken Nnamani is here with us. The representative of His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, Dr. Tokpe Faswa, is here in the room with us. We have Hajia Fatima Wali Abdurrahman. She's advisor to Alhaji Aliko Dangote. She's here representing. It's good to see you, madam. Dr. Charles Deji Akinyola, Chief of Staff to Osun State Governor, representing Osun State, His Excellency Governor Oyetola is here. Would like to recognize and greet and welcome Honorable Bawa Buhari, former Minister of State, Ministry of Mines and Steel Development. It is at this time, Mr. Chairman, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that I welcome to the podium the representative of His Excellency, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, is represented this morning by the Chief of Staff to the President, the very distinguished Professor Ibrahim Gambari.
His Excellency General Yakubu Gowon, the former head of state of Nigeria, Your Excellencies, the governors of the various states that are present, the former President of the Senate, Dr. Nnamani, former governors, the distinguished senator from the former governor of Ogun State and distinguished senator, and all the distinguished ladies and gentlemen who are here. I bring greetings from my boss, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, who is currently on an official visit to Nasarawa State. And he has asked me to extend congratulations to His Excellency Dr. KAYODE FAYEMI for producing this book. He has the highest regard for Dr. FAYEMI for many reasons. First, Dr. FAYEMI was his minister, the Minister for Mines and Steel Development, and he was a trailblazer because he brought into that office vision, energy, and commitment. And he's also, of course, Dr. FAYEMI has also been part of the team that helped bring President Buhari to power and to be part of the transition from the previous government to the current one. It's very important to state, and I think Governor Ganduje has made the point, that sometimes academics I should also have mentioned and recognized the honorable ministers who are in the audience, and we'll just have one of them join us here. It's sometimes been said that academicians are not fit to be in governance because they are too much of theoreticians. And I think Governor Ganduje made the point that too much analysis can also lead to paralysis. However, practice and politicking without a vision can also become extremely unproductive for a country that needs to move forward. So it is a combination of people of vision, intellect, and practice, experience, record of achievement in public service that, in my view, qualifies people for leadership. Yes, Plato, in the famous book, The Republic, said a society is doing justice to its people when those who are specialized in particular trades are allowed to express themselves to the fullest extent of their abilities, and therefore felt that philosophers should be kings. In other words, intellectuals, in a sense, should be rulers. That's the perspective. But it's not a question of a choice between practitioners and intellectuals, but a combination of vision for a society, a combination of experience of people who have demonstrated capacity in articulating the needs of a society and helping to implement that. It's Mr. President's view that the more people of experience, people of vision write about the future of a society, the better will be for that society, because then they will leave books, articles, and chart a course for a society, because the best of a society has to be articulated by those who not only come from the background, who have, and in the case of Dr. FAYEMI, he has been governor twice. This is the second time. He has also led a group of people who make it their daily business to attend to the needs of the people. So we need more books, more articles, more discussions on the future of our country. And coming back to Nigeria, it is very true that the vision of our founding fathers have not been fully realized, but it's work in progress. And that is why I think it's important that this book should be read, this book should be practicalized, this book should serve as a pointer. And obviously, we want to congratulate Dr. FAYEMI for being another trailblazer, not only in the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, but also in the governance of this country. So on behalf of President Muhammad Buhari, congratulations, more grace to your elbow, and of course, we have to thank Her Excellencies, Mrs. FAYEMI, because it's often said that behind a successful man is a woman. I don't think it should be beside, it should be behind, it should be beside. besides a very successful man, is a woman who is committed to helping her spouse to achieve the objective that they both share. So once again, congratulations to you both, and best wishes to all those who are here to join the author in helping to achieve into reality the vision that he has so carefully articulated in the books. Once again, thank you very much, and God bless.
Representative of His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, speaking about the legacy of books, the importance of books, and that this book, Unfinished Greatness, should be read, should be practicalized, and other leaders and other visionaries should write books about Nigeria. Brings good wishes from His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic. Let's hear a warm greeting for Professor Ibrahim Gambari, Chief of Staff to the President of the Federal Republic. You are not clapping. Thank you very much. And as he was speaking, we had the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, join us in the House. Welcome. We also have the indefatigable Honorable Minister of Finance, Dr. Zainab Ahmed, here with us. Welcome. The representations of several governments and states have arrived. Barrister Joseph Ekumakan, representing Ebonyi State, is here with us. Please give him a round of applause. Mr. Jimmy Imo, representative of the Governor of Imo State, is here. Honorable Aka Baba, representative of Benue State Governor, is here. Pharmacist Samaila Borgun, representative of the Bauchi State Governor, is here. Thank you for coming. We also have elder statesman, Chief Bisi Akonde, former Governor of Osun State, here with us. Honorable Sam Ode, MNI, former Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, is representing Minister of Special Duties, Senator George Akome. We thank you for coming. We also have in our midst Colonel Paul Omeru, retired, former military administrator of Kogi State, representing the Coalition of Society for the Right of Older Persons in Nigeria. Colonel Omeru, where are you? We thank you for coming. Alhaji Abubakar Bichi, Chair, House Committee on Works. Honorable Kabiru Al-Hassan, Chair, House Committee on Pensions. His Excellency, the Ogun State Governor is here, Chief Dakbo Abiodun. You're welcome, sir. Conference of Local Government Chairman Algon, Ekiti State, is here, and Chief Paul Omotosho, Chairman APC Ekiti State, is here. I see that there are also a lot of women's groups that have come in from Ekiti State. Wave your hand if you came in from Ekiti State. I can see you. Would like to welcome all of you for coming to support His Excellency, the Governor of the state, for this really, really fantastic opportunity to share with us how he believes that there is unfinished greatness in a visionary nation like Nigeria. Would like to crave your indulgence to take a little bit of a break from the entertainment sector and give us a breather before we begin to listen to all those very exciting intellectual sections of the book. And I would like to invite Obaf Music, who is well known in the music industry, mostly in Abuja, both in societal and corporate events, has handled the entertainment sector for the Nigerian oil and gas sector and the Nigerian Economic Summit for several years, also known to cut across various genres of music. He has trained various musicians, and he is today performing as a saxophonist for this very distinguished gathering. Obaf.
right at the Minister of...
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call on the very special members of the Fourth Estate of the Realm, my colleagues, journalists and photographers, to please decongest the front row. Please help us decongest the front row. Thank you very much. The photographs have been taken. If you would please return to your positions. It is not healthy for us to gather like this, so please move yourselves to the position in which you have been granted. Thank you very much, my colleagues. I know that the best photographs are in front here, but at this time you will need to step aside from that front row. Mr. Chairman, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to greet and welcome Malam Abdullahi Gonzo, former Deputy Governor of Kano State, Prince Adebo Komolafe, National Coordinator, Ashiwaju Progress Vanguard. I'd like at this point to invite media to please play a mini documentary titled Unfinished Greatness, Unfinished Business, which is the precursor to the keynote address. The mini documentary, please. I'd like to appeal to my colleagues, the media, to please decongest the front row. Thank you very much. The documentary.
Nation building is an unfinished business, and this is the premise on which the book Unfinished Greatness, Envisioning a New Nigeria by the incumbent governor of Ekiti State and the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, John Kayode FAYEMI, takes a foothold. What are our challenges as a nation? How faulty is our nation? Does it need fixing? What tools are required to fix Nigeria? Is nation building reserved for a particular generation? If restructuring is the solution to our problem, how then do we go about it? These are the lists of questions on the lips of Nigerians, and many more questions are begging for answers, even with the brilliant use of a range of experiences, literatures, and well thought out ideas in his book Unfinished Greatness. While many rationales have been postulated by intellectuals on the challenges hindering Nigeria from maximizing her numerous potentials, from his wealth of experience in politics, journalism, national security, and education, Governor John Kayode FAYEMI's opinions in the envisioning of a new Nigeria enlightens by suggesting ways and methods which cut across various sectors of the economy in order to overcome our challenges as a nation. Being a strong believer in the national agenda of unity, freedom, justice, and equity, John Kayode FAYEMI's views on nation building and foreign policies, restructuring, national security challenges, democracy, politics, religion, natural resources, to mention a few, clearly communicates that with the right mentality and the right course of action, the greatness envisaged from the workability of his beliefs may be diminutive compared to the status of Nigeria as a country on which all other African countries can look up to as a beacon of hope. Should we start seeing our challenges from a different and more constructive perspective?
Over the years, we have grappled with difficult challenges, some of which seem certain to break the ties that bind us. We have overcome a depressing civil war, disruptions of our democratic systems, painful recessions, and horrible epidemics. None of this, however, could break the resilient Nigerian spirit.
Combining lessons and words of wisdom from national heroes like Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Alhaji Tafawa Balewa, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Sir Amadu Bello, and authors like Wole Soyinka, Ben Okri, and so on. Unfinished Greatness invites all Nigerians to search for a greater state of perfection in seeing our challenges as opportunities for leadership moments of a historic kind, and stimulate us individually and collectively to renew our faith that Nigeria is destined for greater heights and bigger things in the global system. In the event that concerted efforts are geared towards making the best use of everything we are naturally endowed with as a nation to facilitate easy transition into a major force on the world stage. Governor John KAYODE FAYEMI, a former Minister of Mines and Steel Development and former Adjunct Professor of Security Studies at the African Center for Strategic Studies, National Defense University, Fort McNair, Washington, D.C., USA, has written on governance and democratization, civil-military relations, and security sector issues in Africa. His recent books include Deepening the Culture of Constitutionalism, The Role of Regional Institutions in Constitutional Development in Africa, CDD 2003, Security Sector Governance in Africa, a handbook edited with Nicole Ball, CDD 2004, Out of the Shadows, Exile and the Struggle for Freedom and Democracy in Nigeria, CDD 2005, and most recently, Unfinished Greatness, Envisioning a New Nigeria. From the foreword by General Abdulsalam Abubakar, GCFR, to all elements of the postscript, Unfinished Greatness, Envisioning a New Nigeria is a book thoughtfully and carefully packed with literature that inspires hope into a future filled with purpose and destiny in the achievement of oneness and unity in freedom, peace, and justice.
Unfinished Greatness, Unfinished Business, a 4-minute documentary that speaks to the book and speaks to the essence of the author, His Excellency Dr. KAYODE FAYEMI. It also lists the number of books that he has written and the areas that he has taken an interest in across policy and across democracy and across development in Nigeria. And therefore, that is a precursor to the keynote. But before the keynote, permit me to welcome and greet Right Honorable Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, His Excellency the Governor of Sokoto State, who has just made his way into the room. Your Excellency, you're welcome. I also have it on notice that the air conditioners that are stationed beside you are being switched off by people who feel that it is directly at them. The air conditioners are the tools of the hall to keep everybody cool. So please, I'd like to advise and appeal that you leave them the way they are. If you're not happy with where you are seated and it's too cold for you, you might want to move your seat. The AC is a community tool for our collective coolness. So please help us to keep it that way. I would, at this point, like to invite a man who has taken Nigeria to higher grounds and has worked across the world representing the good people and the good nation of Nigeria. Our keynote speaker today is Professor Adebayo Olukoshi, Director of Africa and West Asia International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, IDEA. Media, let's see his profile.
Professor Olukoshi. Professor Adebayo Olukoshi holds a bachelor's degree from Ahmadu Bello University and a doctorate degree from Leeds University. He was a research professor of international economic relations and research director at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. He has also been a senior research fellow and program director at the Nordic Africa Institute in Uppsala, Sweden, senior program staff at the South Center in Geneva, and executive secretary of the African Social Science Council. Further, He has served as director of the UN Africa Institute of Economic Development and Planning, the African Governance Institute, and the Africa and West Asia program of the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, IDEA. Among others, he has been honored with distinguished professorships by the University of Johannesburg and the University of Witwatersrand, both in South Africa. He has published 14 books and over 200 journal articles and book chapters on the political economy, development, and governance in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Olukoshi.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Director of Ceremonies. I would like to stand on all of the protocols that have been established, but you would also permit me, as an opener, to pay a warm tribute to somebody who rightly qualifies, and many of you have already done, to be referred to as one of the key fathers of modern Nigeria, His Excellency General Yakubu Gowon. May I also, in the same vein, acknowledge, appreciate, and thank His Excellency Governor FAYEMI, the First Lady of Ekiti State, Erelu, BC FAYEMI, for the honor done to me, inviting me to be a speaker on this occasion. As I listened to His Excellency Governor Ganduje, I was a bit frightened because I said, I am going to lead you into paralysis with too much analysis. Well, actually, I have been rescued, partly, by His Excellency Professor Ibrahim Gambari, Chief of Staff to the President of the Federal Republic, and somebody whom I refer to as my former teacher, my mentor, and somebody who has been very supportive of my career. Because in his response to you, Governor Ganduje, and I'm sure you didn't disagree, as somebody himself who has been in the high chambers of knowledge with a doctorate, that actually for the transformation of nations, we do need at all times to find ways of harnessing what a former US Secretary of State, Cordell Hull, referred to as the diplomacy of thought and the diplomacy of action. Because it is in the combination of thought that helps us to hew out a vision for ourselves and our future, that we then begin to frame action, and through thought also critique action in order to improve in the quest for an even greater form of perfection. And this question of perfection, of what makes for the greatness of nations, is one which has racked scholarly communities around the world for a very long time. But in recent times, in the context of what has been referred to as failed states around the African continent and elsewhere in the world, and some even already in a state of pessimism, refer to our own country as either a failed state or on the way to failure, the question of what makes for the greatness of nations has become a contemporary and current one. And yet, I think, Governor Ganduje, you're also partially right, because we scholars never agree on a lot. And there is intense debate which is going on among scholars around the world on exactly what is that factor that makes the difference between nations that achieve greatness and nations that fail or stagnate. I have gone through the literature, and I wanted to summarize the arguments under 4 broad rubrics, which I will also proceed to discount in terms of our own concerns in this country. The first of them, an old argument about the making of nations, centers on the role of culture and religion. And it is born out of the work of the German philosopher, Max Weber, who argued that in the making of transformation, you needed to adopt a certain work ethic, and that work ethic could only come out of a Protestant form of reformation. So scholars have argued that for those countries around the world which we see today as developed, particularly in Europe, and of course with reference to the United States, we are dealing with countries that have gone through a Protestant Reformation that made it possible for them to embrace an ethic and a culture of work that has helped to transform them, even the building of a modern bureaucracy. Now, if you push them, those who make this argument, and there are many who still hold on to this position today, inspired by Max Weber, if you push them and ask, are we all now supposed to become Protestants? They may, in fact, retract, as they have had to do in the wake of the East Asian economic miracle. Certainly, the peoples of South Korea, of Malaysia, of Indonesia, of Singapore, were not part of the Protestant Reformation that swept through Europe, but have made good for themselves and achieved one form of greatness or the other, built on the back of a massive socio-economic transformation, which in many respects even trumped the achievements of the countries of old Europe and the United States that took much longer to achieve the kinds of transformation that happened within a generation in Japan, in South Korea, and elsewhere in Asia. And so the argument was modified to say that in addition to the Protestant ethic, there now is a Confucian ethic born out of the philosophy of Confucius, and which ethic was also compatible or deemed to be compatible with the development of a work ethic. And for us in Africa, almost predictably, the argument is that we are locked in a certain political economy of affection in which we put humanity, honesty, and trust, the building of social relations, over and above work and success. And that is why we remain held back. The man who has one chicken welcoming a visitor into his home in a rural Tanzanian village, argues Yoran Huden, does not think of how to multiply that one chicken into 10 chickens, but would happily slaughter that single chicken in order to show hospitality to his visitor, and hence the inability of Africa simply to transform itself. Well, it can be tempting. So if we don't all have to be Protestants, and we don't all have to become Confucians, what must we do? And here, I think it was our own very erudite and eminent scholar, the late Ibrahim Tahir, in his thesis defended at Cambridge University in the late 1970s, based on extensive study of what made for the greatness of Old Kano, that place which you preside over, Governor Ganduje, and titled his thesis, Scholars, Sufis, Saints, and Capitalists, the Making of Transformation in Northern Nigeria, and demonstrated that, in fact, culture, far from being universally applicable across geographies, is actually developed within specific contexts, which enable it to find the resonance that then produces the dynamics of the kinds of changes which we saw that led to the making of Old Kano as a great center of commerce in the Sahel. So we can dispense with that argument. The second, in the literature, is the argument that it is actually institutions that make the difference between those of us who wallow in a state of ungreatness, so-called, and those who have achieved greatness. That notion of institutions, you will recall, featured prominently in the speech which Barack Obama delivered as first elected black president when he spoke from Ghana to the entire African continent. But what Africa needs is strong institutions, not strong leaders. And those scholars who have argued this position about the importance of institutions in the making and transformation of nations, in the achievement and sustenance of greatness, argued that essentially what we have in much of Africa, unlike in the West, are institutions that are extractive, not inclusive. Institutions that penalize innovation and creativity and reward a certain parasitism of the kind which builds and nurtures corruption and does not penalize the kinds of abuses that we see happening in all parts of the continent. Institutions, they argue, matter, makes the difference between why a village next door to Mexico, but located in the United States, can function properly, and the same people living across the border, speaking the same language in Mexico, are wallowing in poverty and misery. Again, a very tempting argument. But I guess after everything we have seen, with due apology, under the presidency of Donald Trump, it is very easy for us to begin to revise the notion that institutions, rather than strong leaders, is what matters. In fact, in the story of nations, when institutions emerge, they emerge on account of the vision that is forged by strong leaders. Leaders and institutions constitute a dialectic, two sides of the same coin, in which the one helps in the process of evolving the rules of the game and the framework within which policy is developed and evaluated, and the other helps to hold the leader accountable in a symbiotic relationship that we have seen played out in some of the most advanced democracies around the world. So there's probably something more than institutions that matter for the transformation of nations. And here a third argument, particularly favored by business schools around the world, and which has led to the proliferation of schools of leadership across the African continent. Almost a countless number of programs devoted to building leadership have centered on the idea that what we lack is the kind of transformational leadership. And drawing from organizational theory, building up into the nation state, the argument, again, is essentially that Africa needs to find the right kind of leadership. I don't think many of us will disagree with that. But then how do we find that kind of leadership? Under what conditions do leaders of that kind emerge? And beyond some of the cliches that are favored by inspirational speakers, we are required to dig deeper into history and into the comparative experiences of nations to find that moment in their history when they broke out of a state of morass in order to evolve a leadership culture and context that made it possible precisely to give birth to transformational and visionary leaders. Finally, the argument about geography and culture, very simple. The countries that have been most developed in the world have been lucky in the sense of forming nations in parts of the world where the climate was good. It was pure luck for them in the dispersal of humankind, in human migrations. Those who settled in temperate zones of the world have made a greater success of development than those of us who have been condemned to the tropical parts of the world, where disease is particularly rife and the conditions are so inclement that it is impossible to be productive. Sounds like a very cheeky argument. And yet, indeed, many have held on to this position as explaining the difference between us and the other. But they cannot explain why, in parts of the tropics that they condemn as being prone to disease and failure by the accident of geography and climate, why is it possible that we can have a Singapore, a South Korea, a Brazil, and a whole host of other tropical countries that have burst out in the course of the 20th century and the 21st century to become big players in the international system? And I'm not even going to talk about the existence in some of the so-called temperate countries of multiple climatic zones within them, which would be a way of extending the argument against this thesis a bit further. And so it seems to me that digging a bit deeper into comparative history, we might in fact find that the common denominator, more than any of the four factors mentioned, and certainly as a precondition for any of those factors to play a role in the transformation of a nation, is the question of that moment of dignity. A moment of dignity. Now I want to argue that based on this comparative history, while character can build a nation, it is dignity that transforms nations. Let me illustrate with the example of China, which today perhaps has established itself as the locomotive engine of the world, taking over effectively, first from the United Kingdom, which was the home of the first industrial revolution, and the United States, under whose Pax Americana much of the contemporary international system has been forged. We have seen the re-emergence of China as a major force in the international system. A country which was once seen as a potential site of human tragedy on a large scale because of its inability to feed itself, or what was feared to be its inability to feed itself. But the journey of China to transformation actually began more than 200 years ago in the context of the so-called Opium Wars, which, as you might remember, were wars which were fought particularly by Britain and later supported by France in the Second Opium War, to compel the Chinese emperor to allow the continued importation from British and European merchants of opium into China at a time when the Chinese leadership decided that the time had come to halt the consumption of opium because it was basically ruining the people. The British went to war, controllers of the high seas, with their armada, and defeated the Chinese emperor, forcing a treaty on them which effectively led to the ceding of Hong Kong to Britain as an outpost, and a free and unrestricted access to the port of Shanghai. This remained etched on the memory of the Chinese people. And it was a matter of time, and they bided their time, that they would get to a moment in their history when they would decide and proclaim that never again shall we, the people of China, be humiliated by any power on earth. And so, when the Qing dynasty fell on the back of the agreements and concessions it had to make to the British and other European powers after the Opium Wars, rebellions of various kinds took place in China, perhaps not even dissimilar to some of the insurgencies which we are dealing with in Nigeria and across the Sahel, calling into question the authority of central government and seeking alternative ways out of the feeling of humiliation that had been visited on the Chinese nation. And it was only in 1949, on the back of the Chinese Revolution, led by Mao Zedong, that the process of reconciliation began within China. And in that reconciliation, a journey of transformation was launched in earnest. Mao Zedong, we all know, was a communist. But I want to submit to you that first and foremost, above everything else, Mao Zedong was first and foremost a Chinese nationalist. And he was careful to remind his comrades and the rest of the world that yes, China was going to adopt a Marxist doctrine of economic governance and social transformation, but with Chinese characteristics. It was not for him a question of simply sloganeering, as some of us did in Africa, who launched revolutions inspired by Lenin and Marx, and erected statues of Stalin and all kinds of international revolutionaries in the name of an internationalism that did not speak to the immediate context within which we were dealing or the history from which we were emerging. He built a Chinese revolution with Chinese characteristics, underpinned by the idea that China's dignity shall be restored. And the story of China ever since then has been a story of never again. Will China be submitted to an unequal or unjust treaty? And it does not matter what the rest of the world may say. After all, China had the demographics to be able to build a home market strategy for itself. And when it was ready for the world, it emerged, and emerged with the ideology of a peaceful rise. We will not seek to conquer others, but nobody will be allowed to interfere in our internal affairs. You may do what you like with the rest of the world if they allow you, but in China, certain lines are drawn which nobody can cross. We shall support the multilateral system for as long as it respects our history, our culture, and our sovereignty. China has never looked back. And if you think the example of China is probably easy to dismiss on account of the demographics of the country, its large population size, and other factors of endowment that play in its favor, we can also look at Japan. The story of Japan began with the Meiji Restoration that happened in 1868. It was actually Japan's war, revolution of transformation, one in which for the first time, after the rule of an army of feudal lords known as the shoguns, dominated the history of the country for almost 400 years, a leadership group emerged to create a central Japan government that drove an agenda of modernization away from feudalism. On the argument, again, and read the history very carefully, that in the context of a changing world, in which, just as we were experiencing in Africa at the time, it was the 1860s, we were receiving visitors from the West, explorers and adventurers, coming to see what was available in the rest of the world and discovering the so-called New World, that Japan was not going to be submitted to any form of foreign domination. The Meiji Restoration was Japan's revolution of modernization, but it was also a struggle for the preservation of the dignity of the Japanese. And in the period since then, Japan, despite the setbacks of the Second World War, which practically put it on its knees, has never looked back. Yes, the military chivalry of the Meiji era was dropped as part of the concessions that followed the end of the Second World War. But what the Japanese dropped in terms of a militarized form of nationalism, they won in terms of a new economic nationalism that placed them at the top tier of the international system. You may perhaps say that my examples of China and Japan are, after all, developed countries. They may be different from us. So let us come nearer home and take the example of Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew. This was a country that was given no chance at all. A famous British historian actually wrote a moving piece at the time of the independence of Malaysia that dust bowl in the corner of Malaysia was a human tragedy that was waiting to happen. Less than 30 years after, Singapore was emerging as a powerhouse in the international system. On account, again, of that recognition, following the separation from Malaysia, that the Singaporeans as a people have a duty to win back the dignity that had been denied them in the framework of Greater Malaysia, and to prove to the world that they were capable of making a success of their circumstances using the little resources at their disposal. So it seems to me, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that the journey of transformation of any nation must begin as a journey of self-respect. A people and a nation who have no respect for themselves cannot expect to get respect from the rest of the world. The international system in which we operate is a system in which, if you are foolish, there is no shortage of people who will accompany you with your foolishness and perhaps even praise you for your stupidity and probably even give you awards in recognition of your stupidity. It is a cruel world, and we need to understand as Africans that altruism may be an ideology for the purposes of diplomacy, but in the real world, it is often a zero-sum game that is at play. You win, I lose, I win, you lose. And so, self-respect as a starting point is the wake-up call which nations receive. And we on the African continent, we know that we have been through the travails of recent world history, beginning with the slave trade, moving on to the so-called legitimate trade, which is not dissimilar in all of its material details from the Opium War that was fought against China about the same time as the legitimate trade was being proposed to us on the continent, setting up an unequal relationship of exchange after the underdevelopment that had been caused by over 300 years of slave trade. And finally, the partition of the continent and the colonial imposition. We have been bequeathed with nations which were molded on the basis of a European agenda and not so much on the basis of our own autonomous trajectory. But we are not alone in this tragedy. Other nations that have also had difficult circumstances in emerging in the current international system have been able to step back, either by revolution or by a leadership consensus in order to find a way forward. And the starting point is always, without exception, from Latin America to Asia, to the history of old Europe, that wake-up moment of never again shall we play second fiddle to anybody or any people in the international system. And so it will do us not much good on the African continent to seek transformation on the assumption that the world somehow owes us a living, that somehow they mean well for us. And honestly, believe you me, there are kind people in the international system. There is no shortage of kindness in the international system. But kindness never transformed a nation. And to the extent to which we continue to count on foreign aid and foreign technical assistance for our transformation of the African continent, for so long shall we continue to play second fiddle in the international system. We need that wake-up moment of saying that by our own bootstraps, we will find our dignity. Indignities that are visited against the African on an everyday basis, played out in Black Lives Matter in the United States, played out within our own shores, where even some of our wealthiest compatriots are denied a visa from some backwater European country on account of their place of origin and the color of their skin. When will enough be enough? And it seems to me that for us in Nigeria, history places a burden on us, that which had been alluded to by the chair of this occasion and which has been repeated several times in the book that is about to be launched today, that history has given us all of the indices of power, and we need to convert potentiality into reality. We have seen glimpses of what is possible, and we have had proud moments in this country as we saw glimpses of what a great future can look like for our nation. How many people will forget, for example, the experience of the short-lived period of Murtala Mohammed and the pride which the 6 months he had in power evoked in the entire African world and the black diaspora, when he said on the back of Angola's struggle for independence and pointed to by His Excellency Governor FAYEMI, during the 2022 Murtala Mohammed lecture, pointed to the fact that Africa has come of age. We shall no longer accept dictation from any continental, extra-continental power at a time when the American government was putting pressure on African countries not to recognize Agostinho Neto as the legitimate president of Angola because they were fighting communism. And it was Murtala Mohammed's speech that tilted the balance at the Organization of African Unity in favor of MPLA and Agostinho Neto. The African nation rose up in pride about a Nigeria, that giant that had finally woken up. And we're all proud for it. But we know that we deserve more, and we know that we demand more. We seek a consistency of leadership and of vision that can enable us to turn the corner against underdevelopment and achieve the greatness for which we have all of the endowments. We have had individuals as statesmen who have excelled at home and internationally, but we have not been able to build the leadership consensus that matters in order for us to organize ourselves around the idea of a collective dignity. And it seems to me that in the context of all of the difficulties that we are experiencing as a people and as a nation today, problems of insecurity of all kinds, problems of poverty, in which the United Nations warns us that we are likely to take over from India and become the poverty capital of the world, problems of unemployment of our youth, problems of drug abuse, and all of the ills that combine together. Our response must not be to say that Nigerians, to thy tents, O Israel, separate, let us go our separate ways. And I salute the courage of Governor FAYEMI in insisting that our answer must be to strive for greater perfection, not to surrender in defeat in the face of challenges and problems, but to rise to those problems and to face the challenges head-on in a manner that will enable us to break the jinx that has prevented our greatness from emerging, and do so on the basis of securing our dignity. And the day that we are able to do that is the day that I believe that Nigeria's journey towards even further greatness can begin to be told, can begin to be run. And effectively, from this point of view, we have a lot in the book, as we will hear from the reviewer, which encourages us to strive for that leadership consensus. Sometimes Nigerians argue that perhaps the problem is not so much with leadership, but with followership. And I agree that followership is absolutely important. Indeed, it is impossible to talk of any meaningful form of effective leadership without accompanying it with an effective and meaningful form of followership. The dialectic of leadership and followership, working in tandem, plays out always, almost without fail, in favor of transformation. But there is a special duty which belongs to leaders in Nigeria, and it is a duty of transcending narrow and parochial differences and finding that common denominator of the things that bind us together in a way that will enable us to forge a new consensus around dignity. And I'm sure not too many people will disagree that dignity is a common currency which is shared in all our ethnicities, religions, and cultures in Nigeria. The whole idea of shame and the whole idea of self-respect, which we practice at home and within our communities, are things which we need to graduate to a national level and harness on a national scale in order to presage that process of transformation that will announce our arrival. And I'm happy that in the book that is to be launched today, we get that message of hope that perhaps we have reached the point, our problems have built up enough that Nigerians are ready for the kind of transformation that will enable us to turn the corner. We who are born of women are of few years and full of troubles, and I think that will resonate a lot in the book. But we also, as Africans, cannot accept to be condemned to a life of perpetual poverty, insecurity, and an absence of peace. And I hope that leadership will join hands together to forge a new national agenda, a vision which will help us to claim this century and make it happen within our lifetime. Over to you, Governor FAYEMI. Your work is cut out for you. Thank you.
Representative of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, Your Excellency, the Chairman of the occasion, General Yakubu Gowon, our Chief Host, Dr. Kayode FAYEMI, Excellencies, Governors here present, Honorable Ministers here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Professor Adebayo Olukoshi, Laiwowe, the man has proven to everybody here present the reason for which he was so chosen to be the keynote speaker for an event such as this. Director of Africa and West Asia International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, and export of the Nigerian nation to the world. Professor Olukoshi has looked at the challenge of geography, leadership consistency, strong institutions, dignity and pride, self-respect. That's one area that reminds Africans of eternal shame when you have committed an offense, even as a child. Professor Olukoshi has challenged us all that Nigeria has so much to give to the world if self-respect and dignity are the fulcrum of the things which we put forward, leadership and followership as part of his keynote speech. Let's hear another round of applause for a very distinguished keynote speaker. I would quickly mention that while the keynote was being delivered, the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, His Excellency Governor Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, Governor of Kebbi State, arrived. I would like to welcome you and thank you for coming. Honorable Minister Uche Oga, Minister of State, Solid Minerals and Development Ministry, is here with us. The Director General of NCDC, Dr. Ifedayo Adetipa, is here with us. And from Ekiti State, Mr. Biodun Abayomi Oyebanji, former Secretary to Ekiti State Government, and now governorship candidate APC Ekiti State, has joined us. Mrs. Babafemi, Head of State Ekiti State, is here, and she comes with a body of permanent secretaries from Ekiti State. Honorable Biodun Omoleye, Chief of Staff to the Governor, is here. Evangelist Folusho Daramola, Acting Secretary to the State Government, is here. We also have Comrade Sunday Ashefon, President, National Association of Nigerian Students. We have Mr. Dare Babarisa, publisher, writer, and a foremost Nigerian. Malam Saliu Mustafa Turaki of Ilorin is here. Honorable Peter Akpatson, who is Deputy Leader of the House. He's here representing His Excellency, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Akpatson is here with us. Please, let's give him a round of applause. I want to thank you all for being here, but I promise you much more as you prepare to listen to the review. I'd like to put on the table, very specially, a woman very much after my heart, who also is an author of many books and who has been the woman beside the man whom we celebrate today. Help me greet and celebrate Her Excellency Erelu Bisi FAYEMI, my sister and friend. Thank you for being the woman that you are. Would like at this point to invite another very cerebral, very trenchant individual who would be delivering the book review. Please help me welcome Dr. Joe Abba, Nigeria Country Director, DAI Global.
Dr. Joe Abba. Dr. Joe Abba is a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria and a solicitor of the Supreme Court of England and Wales. He holds a PhD in governance and public policy analysis from Maastricht University in the Netherlands, where he currently serves as a visiting lecturer at the Maastricht Graduate School of Governance. His academic interest is in how organizations in dysfunctional environments can overcome daunting institutional constraints and still function for the benefit of citizens. He is currently the country director of DAI, an international development company that works with a wide range of clients, including national and local governments, bilateral and multilateral donors, private corporations, and philanthropies in over 100 countries. Before joining DAI in September 2017, Joe was the Director General of the Bureau of Public Services Reforms in Nigeria, during which he demonstrated the need for public service reforms to focus on tangible improvements in the lives of citizens, not just administrative reforms. His work as Director General led to improvements in the processing of driver's licenses, international passports, tax clearance certificates, and national identity management, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Joe Abba.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the former head of state of Nigeria, General Yakubu Gowon, the representative of Mr. President, Your Excellencies, the governors here present, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to have been asked by my brother and friend, Dr. KAYODE FAYEMI, to review his new book, Unfinished Greatness, Envisioning a New Nigeria. When he first asked me to review the book, I was certain that I had seen a book of that title before. And it was going through my library that I saw that it was actually the title of a book that was an autobiography of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. But it was interesting to learn that this Unfinished Greatness book was not about an individual, but about the unfinished greatness of a nation. There's a depth of disillusionment and frustration with Nigeria's perennial inability to fulfill its true potential that has led many to a pessimistic and defeatist response to national issues. New ideas and initiatives are often viewed with cynicism and the preemptive evaluating judgment of "it will never work" is passed on new initiatives before they even commence. Unfortunately, the pessimist is often right, and it doesn't work. When an intention is announced to tackle a problem, many commentators say, "Talk is cheap. I know it won't be implemented." When people start giving testimonies that things appear to be changing, the refrain is often, "That is not enough." Is that what we should be celebrating now when others are sending probes to Mars? Anyway, I know it won't be implemented. And when eventually the optimist points out that the new initiative has actually been working successfully for a while now, the next statement is often, that is not our problem now. Even the greatest optimist cannot fault this pessimistic and defeatist view, because he has been forged by very many examples over very many years of poorly designed initiatives, lack of intellectual rigor, poor preparation, poor implementation, endemic corruption, lack of ambition, policy somersaults, and a lack of sustainability. How then does an optimist offer a compelling and credible, solution-focused alternative narrative without denying the challenges in the environment or the unenviable track record of failure? It is not often that a book review includes a review of the book's foreword, but in discussing this tension between justified pessimism and informed optimism, the foreword by Nigeria's former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, succinctly and intelligently sets the context for the whole book. Although Dr. FAYEMI's book is a collection of essays, there is a coherent narrative thread running through the whole book. In the words of the author himself, the book offers the perspectives of a firm believer in a Nigerian national agenda of unity, freedom, justice, and equity. Those perspectives are offered in the knowledge that national development is not necessarily a linear process or a one-off activity that if you just undertook, you wouldn't need to make any other efforts. My boss, Jim Boomgard, the president and CEO of DAI, once said, and I quote, "There is no silver bullet in development, no single sector or region or discrete problem that if we just got right, everything else will fall into place. Development is a messy combination of systemic problems that play out in unique contexts all over the world. Failures typically outnumber successes and often blur into one another, and the emphasis must always be on learning." The first chapter of the book, which shares the same title as the book itself, tackles the question as to whether we need what the author calls strategic demolition to remake a nation. It recognizes that there's a wide range of opinions as to how Nigeria can be remade, ranging from decentralization to devolution and even to agitations for outright secession. FAYEMI lists several challenges bedeviling Nigeria's nationhood, including over-centralization of power, a revenue-sharing formula skewed in favor of the federal government, and a predominantly youthful population that have only ever heard tales of a Nigeria that once lived up to its part of a social contract, but have never actually witnessed it. Several people blame our inability to fulfill our potential on what some term the mistake of 1914. But FAYEMI argues that calling Nigeria's amalgamation a mistake would itself be a mistake, because the peoples that now make up Nigeria have interacted and traded with each other long before the map that we now have was drawn. The United States of America, the richest, most powerful nation in the world, is similarly an amalgamation of several peoples, some of whom have their own flags and defined territories before that amalgamation. He also rightly, in my view, questions those that blame all our problems on colonialism and posits that, though now operated by Nigerians, the post-colonial state has been as alien and as predatory as its colonial predecessor. FAYEMI posits that leaders must take responsibility and move away from the interminable blame game that tries to shift responsibility to others, including colonialists. The Nobel Prize laureate Wangari Maathai supports this view when she said, and I quote, 50 years down the road, we ought to be doing things differently. You cannot blame corruption in Africa on colonialism. You cannot blame colonialism for the excessive lifestyles that African leaders assume. You cannot blame it for the mismanagement of the economy or the fact that we have not invested in education. Yes, colonialism was terrible, but we ought to be moving away from that by now. FAYEMI asserts that whatever defects Nigeria currently has can be corrected without having to collapse the whole structure. He offers his perspectives on why Nigeria has not fulfilled its undeniable potential when he says, and I quote, "It appears to me, however, that the fundamental challenge is that all along we've been placing the cart before the proverbial horse. Before we think of development, we must first solve the problems of nation building, because you cannot develop what you do not have." End of quote. He argues that there's a need to recompose the Nigerian state and make it derive its legitimacy from its people. This theme of restructuring reverberates throughout the book. While many have taken the term restructuring to mean different things, he simply describes it as a way to reimagine our country to make it work effectively for everyone. As we go into the political season now, the focus of many Nigerians will be on which persons or groups will gain power and control over the rest of us. As we focus rightly on extending the longest continuous period of democratic rule that our country has ever had, let us also be mindful of the Jean-Jacques Rousseau quote that says, "Before examining the acts by which a nation elects a king, it will be proper to examine the act by which a nation becomes a nation. For this act, being necessarily anterior to the other, is the real foundation of the society." End of quote. As Dr. FAYEMI said, we can correct the defects we have without having to collapse the whole structure. However, the need to reformulate our union will not go away and must be addressed if we are to move forward. Governance problems are unique in that, left unattended, they only ever get worse. They never get better. To examine the act by which Nigeria becomes a nation, it is my opinion that we need to set in motion a process that culminates in producing for us a totally new constitution. That process must start with a patriotic dialogue about the kind of country we want. Although our current constitution is said to have been modeled on the Constitution of the United States of America, the American Constitution has a certain endogenous legitimacy that the 1999 Nigerian Constitution lacks. And that is that it was not handed over to the American people by a military regime. The opening lines of the US Constitution says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. It is imperative that Nigerians have an honest dialogue that leads to a more perfect union. The fact that we, the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, did not actually give to ourselves the Constitution constitutes a fatal flaw that cannot be cured by constitutional amendment. We need a new constitution." The book's second chapter continues with the theme of restructuring. It argues for a restructuring of the political administrative system to allow for a greater degree of decentralization and devolved power that births a more workable federal arrangement. It also proposes the adoption of certain justiciable rights, similar to the American Bill of Rights, which formed the first 10 amendments of the Constitution of the United States. The chapter also highlights the need for a national dialogue as a precursor to restructuring. The third chapter is on the fascinating topic of intellectuals in politics. FAYEMI lays the foundation to the chapter by making references to the concept of the philosopher king, espoused by ancient Greek philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. He takes the position that you need the enlightenment of the intellectuals and the raw talent of the grassroots politician to be able to coagulate a workable political practice that serves the nation. Coming to this realization must have been a chastening experience for FAYEMI, given that he lost his first re-election bid as governor to the now infamous stomach infrastructure phenomenon. After eventually winning his re-election in 2018, I had the privilege of privately asking him to reflect on his experience. With characteristic intellectual honesty, he said, and I quote, "Our administration was said to be too bookish." However, he saw his eventual re-election as a rejection of the short-termism and immediate gratification that came with stomach infrastructure. While clearly not being a fan of stomach infrastructure in its worst sense, he did admit that every politician must acknowledge the place of populism and that substance matters, but symbols cannot be ignored. This is a realization that any intellectual with political ambition would do well to bear in mind, particularly as the last decade has seen a global upsurge in populism and a disdain for intellectualism. The author makes clear that he's not suggesting that every intellectual goes into partisan politics, but proposes that our politics requires a new breed of enlightened, thoughtful, knowledgeable politicians with integrity and character who are courageous, broad-minded, balanced, and capable of living beyond their close circle to set a new path for our national rediscovery. FAYEMI's reflections on the issues of intellectuals in politics continues into the fourth chapter of the book, where he tackles the recurring theme of restructuring and autonomy, drawing on lessons from the life of one of Nigeria's founding fathers, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. Here, FAYEMI reiterates the point that a nation's theory of development can only be derived from a consensus that has been forged on key national questions such as identity, religion, participation, justice, and the overall management of diversity. Perhaps no intellectual in politics has been able to connect with the masses in the way that Malam Aminu Kano did. His political philosophy was emancipatory politics, focused on the need to improve the lives of the Talakawa, the ordinary citizen, through ideas, ideology, and education, rather than through stomach infrastructure. In framing the quest for national integration around the life of Malam Aminu Kano in chapter 5, FAYEMI focuses on another theme on which there is a consistent thread throughout the book. That is the need for exemplary leadership. One is reminded of the Chinua Achebe quote from the book, The Trouble with Nigeria, that the Nigerian problem is the unwillingness or inability of its leaders to rise to the responsibility, to the challenge of personal example, which are the hallmarks of true leadership. Leadership matters. Exemplary leadership matters even more, as it is the connective tissue that binds the leader, including the intellectual in politics, to the ordinary citizen. Chapter 6 emphasizes the need for the media in Nigeria to continue to draw on its long tradition of promoting the imperatives of unity in diversity and democratic rule. And chapter 7 tackles the thorny issue of the role of religion in elections. Chapter 8 reflects on turning the adversity occasioned by COVID-19 to opportunity. The lockdown in 2020 brought into very stark focus the fact that there are virtually no safety nets for artisans and people who can only earn their daily bread by setting forth each day at dawn. FAYEMI saw the COVID crisis as an inflection point that we must take advantage of to realign our country's long-term priorities and reset our development agenda. Chapter 9 focuses on national security challenges and recognizes that apart from the physical insecurity occasioned by ethno-religious violence, militancy, and insurgency, there is also a pervading feeling of a lack of safety in the populace. This has been compounded by widespread kidnapping, drug-fueled crimes, internet fraud, child trafficking, and the rising wave of ritual killings in the mistaken quest to get rich quick. FAYEMI draws on his deep knowledge and experience of the security sector to offer ideas about tackling many of these issues. In the last chapter, chapter 10, FAYEMI returns to the issue of restructuring in reviewing 20 years of democratization in Nigeria. As an activist that was at the forefront of the struggle for a return to democratic rule, his assessment of successes and failures makes for very interesting reading. Without going as far as I did in calling for a totally new constitution, FAYEMI recognizes that if the United States, a nation forged out of common purpose and common consent, perpetually seeks to make a more perfect union, it is evident that the task of nation building will be far more difficult in a state created without the consent of the people and imposed by colonial power. He reiterates the need for devolution and decentralization based on honest national conversations and resolutions. FAYEMI alludes to the fact that his political party, the All Progressives Congress, included restructuring in their manifestos for 2015 and 2019, and says that they have been working towards it. One cannot but wonder whether this working towards it, in quotes, is the same as the "we are working on it" phrase popularly used by Nigerians when they want to avoid any attempts to pin them down to specific timeframes about any topic whatsoever. The postscripts to the book returns to the issue of envisioning a new Nigeria that was the subject of the first chapter. It emphasizes FAYEMI's support for Azikiwe's postulation that the political union of Nigeria is destined to be perpetual and indestructible. He offers a proposal about how Nigerians can come together across political biases to form a country that works for all Nigerians. Overall, the book makes a compelling argument for the need to restructure Nigeria and for decentralization and devolution predicated on an honest national dialogue. It also highlights the imperative of intelligent, people-focused leadership anchored on personal example. It is unapologetically optimistic about the future of Nigeria as a coherent entity founded on unity, freedom, justice, and equity. The book is a useful contribution to the debate about the future of Nigeria at a time when many Nigerians and lovers of lovers of Nigeria are wondering whether and when Nigeria would ever fulfill its undoubted potential. Unlike many publications that focus only on setting out the problems, FAYEMI's book goes much further to outline practical suggestions for tackling some of the thorniest issues in our polity today. I greatly enjoyed reading the book, Unfinished Greatness. I will recommend it to all of you. Thank you and God bless.
Unfinished Greatness, the book review by Dr. Joe Abba, tells you indeed what great minds reside in this country. The sheer erudition of Dr. Joe Abba's review. He's taken from different sectors of the Nigerian state and looking at it from the prism of both the Constitution and restructuring as found in the book, and the issue of stomach infrastructure and intellectuals in politics. Indeed, a review that must be kept by everyone and referred to from time to time. Another round of applause for Dr. Joe Abba. I'd like to announce that the book itself, when it is finally presented, would not be available directly to you. There would be cards of commitment, and so those cards of request will make their way around by the ushers, and you would be able to state how many of the copies of the book you want at that time. But I'd like to remind you that Ekiti is steeped in culture and also steeped in intellectualism. Most of the professors are shared between two states, between Ondo and Ekiti. And we know that the book is not something that challenges them when it comes to reading. Such a man who brings to the fore culture, tradition, and intellectualism is a man who has been doing such great work in the area of tradition. Professor Razak Ojobakari is currently Ekiti State Commissioner for Culture and Tourism and is the first professor of choreography and performing aesthetics from Nigeria, a former dean of postgraduate school, Federal University, Ekiti, former chief executive officer and artistic director, Abuja Carnival, and member, National Academy of Letters. Today, he leads the cultural troupe, the Ekiti State Performing Arts Company, who would be performing Iwure, meaning supplication. And the troupe, there are about 30 of them, and they are coming today to perform Iwure by Ekiti people to thank God for the blessings. And when there is also need to seek God's guidance, this dance is performed for protection and special intervention.
Kwada kule ebo momo so e o pe ma reni Ekiti mede ka momo ha ya mo kule oh ye ya mo kule e alomo loke meji takwatabo e alomo lo se gbari biti kan le o se ko mariri jeri mo ijegbon re nadu mi o mede ka momo ha ya mo kule ye ya mo kule onila me joro onila oloko je omi de onila me joro onila me joro oloko je omi de onila me joro onila me joro oloko je omi de onila me joro onila me joro Ekiti de ko mama we ani onila me joro onila me joro oloko le mo mu opeju gbeyin onila me joro onila me joro mama so ero pe ore ni eni oloko je omi de onila me joro onila me joro arun mi lowo mo ku ba o ti nara laja mo
Gómìnà Káyọ̀dé dọ̀rẹ́ àbóbojé ṣìjẹ́ kẹ́ àlọ́rẹ́ kẹ́ àbọ̀rẹ́ kẹ́ Èkìtì kẹ́ àtòrò kẹ́ mọ̀mọ́ dàrú lùgbà èdè rẹ̀ àwọn gómìnà Káyọ̀dé òkè òkè náà mẹ́ bìrà ọ̀ òkè òkè náà mẹ́ bọ́ṣùpá òkè òkè lọ́ àlọ́wẹ́ ajábọ́ èrè ló bí sí Fáyẹ̀mí rèmi abiyamọ mọ̀já gbọ̀rọ̀gbọ̀rọ̀ mọ̀já kọ́ mi pàálẹ̀ Èkìtì àwọn ẹ̀ máa já o àjọjọ bára rin yákalẹ̀ òkè ní mẹ́lọ́ o àyúre àbọ̀yé ọmọgun ọmọṣẹ́gun ó bàjẹ́ o àwọn arájẹjẹ arájẹmu ọrọ̀ ajẹ́ra túbọ̀ gbèrú ọ̀sí wọ́n ti wí bẹ́ẹ̀ kẹ́sẹ̀ o ló gbé o.
State Cultural Troupe will quickly now like to go to the panel. We'll fast track, time is fast spent. We have fed our hearts and our souls about Nigeria's greatness, and it's time now to have this conversation. This conversation will be by 4 eminent Nigerians, and I'd like to first of all call on panelist number 1, Mr. Waziri Adio.
Waziri Adio. Waziri Adio currently serves as a contributing editor to This Day Arise TV Group and is in the process of setting up a policy think tank. In February 2021, he completed a non-renewable 5-year term as the Executive Secretary of the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. Prior to that, Adio had held senior positions in different organizations, ranging from editor and columnist at This Day newspaper, special advisor to the Senate President, communications specialist at UNDP, and many more. Adio obtained his first degree in mass communication from the University of Lagos, a master's in journalism from Columbia University, and another master's in public administration from Harvard University, where he was, different times, a fellow of the Neyman Foundation for Journalism and an Edward S. Mason Fellow in Public Policy and Management. He was also a visiting fellow to the African Studies Center at the Oxford University, at the University of Oxford, and a fellow of the African Leadership Initiative West Africa, and a member of the Aspen Global Leadership Network. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Waziri Adio.
Mr. Adio should make his way to the podium. His seat is so designated. Where is he? Okay. Panelist number 2, Yemi Adamolekun.
Yemi Adamolekun. Yemi is an active citizen and connector. She currently serves as the Executive Director of Enough is Enough Nigeria, a non-partisan network of individuals and organizations committed to building a culture of good governance and public accountability in Nigeria through active citizenship. Yemi has a 23-year diverse career spanning the public and private sectors in the US and Nigeria. She started her career as a management consultant in Navigant Consulting, one of the top consulting firms in the US, then did a 4-year stint at the Redeemed Christian Church of God Jesus House, DC, as operations coordinator before moving back to Nigeria. In Nigeria, she worked at Alder Consulting, an ideas, strategy, and branding consulting firm, and after 4 months was asked to lead its new startup, A Figment of Imagination, a physical product development firm. She left A Figment of Imagination for business school, and on her return, Providence saw her as one of the founding board members of Enough is Enough. In 2018, she was named one of the most influential people of African descent, endorsed by the United Nations in the humanitarian and religious category. In 2019, she joined the Africa program of the Center for Strategic and International Studies in the US as a non-resident senior associate. In January 2022, Yemi was appointed to the editorial board of This Day newspapers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Yemi Adamolekun.
Thank you very much indeed. Would now like to invite Indi Kato, panelist number 3.
Indi Kato. Indi Kato is a mid-career professional with 10 years experience as a social and human rights activist. She is from Kafanchan, Kaduna State, and holds a degree in mass communication from the University of Jos. She is the founder of Dini Diary Foundation, which focuses on human rights, inclusion for women and youth political processes, as well as development communications. Some of the foundation's platforms include Abuja Discourse, Politician, and Women They Vote. Dini Diary Foundation is currently in partnership with the National Human Rights Commission, ensuring human rights and justice in Nigeria's COVID-19 response. Through their work, they have been able to report on human rights violations in Nigeria's COVID-19 response and improved reporting channels and response to human rights violations. Indi Kato has been profiled as a rising star in politics by the International Republican Institute, and in 2018 she contested for a House of Assembly seat in Kaduna State but lost at the primaries. She is the deputy spokesperson of the Middle Belt Forum and currently serves on the strategy team many non-profits with mandates around electoral reforms and mainstreaming women's perspectives on issues. As a political analyst, she is regularly featured on local and international media. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Indi Kato.
And last but not least, help me give a good welcome to Hamzat Lawal.
Hamzat Lawal. Hamzat Lawal is a global citizen, humanitarian, community organizer, and an award-winning advocate who has successfully led grassroots campaigns in over 40 African countries and mobilized millions of citizens to demand for social change across the continent. He has over 15 years practical experience in the non-profit sector. Hamzi, as fondly called, is also the founder of Follow the Money, a homegrown pan-African grassroots data-driven initiative currently in 10 African countries and one of the fastest growing grassroots movements. He leads a team of technology and innovation-driven campaigners to amplify voices of marginalized communities in promoting accountability as it affects utilization of public funds. In 2019, he was recognized among the 100 most influential Africans, joining Amina J. Mohammed, Aliko Dangote, and Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. He is currently the Chief Executive of Connected Development, CODE, a leading African civil society organization empowering marginalized communities using technology tools and bridging gaps between government and citizens informed by data. CODE won the One Africa 2016 award, which recognizes, rewards, and advances the exceptional work of Africa-based organizations dedicated to helping the continent achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hamzat Lawal.
A nation will not grow if it is permanently stoned at. And for me, as a passionate Nigerian, I believe that this is where to be. This is where the potential is, and this is where I can still get my mangoes for 200 naira a basket while buying one mango for £1 in the United Kingdom. Simple as it seems, that is something that makes me stay here. Respect, community, love of each other, fashion, and a lot of entrepreneurship of our children all over the world. Let's get straight to it. And I'm going to start by addressing Mr. Waziri Adio. You are in the public service. You are in the media and in the development world. What would your perspective on what makes a nation great that has so much potential? What are Nigeria's Achilles heels and how do you navigate them? And let me pre-warn, because of our time, our 3 minutes is no longer there. We now have 1.5 minutes to make that intervention. So, Mr. Adio, let's go.
Thank you very much. Please permit me to quickly congratulate the author, Dr. KAYODE FAYEMI. You also was the chairman of my board when I was the executive secretary of NATI. And the work that we're able to do, we wouldn't have been able to do that without his support. Thank you very much and congratulations on the book. One other thing before I go quickly to your question. I've scanned through the book, and I think we need more books like this. We need people in leadership position. We need people who have taken their time to think through the problems and challenges of this country deeply and committed their thoughts to paper. Secondly, we need to drive governance, administration, politics with ideas. And that also segues into the question that you asked about some of the Achilles heels of Nigeria. So many, but I want to start on a note of hope, which is also what the book is about. There's so much to be hopeful for. And this country has a lot of potential. It's a potentially great country. But at the same time, there's so much widespread cynicism that we cannot blame people for. We cannot blame people for that because there have been so many false starts, there have been so many false hopes, there have been so many false dawns, and it's very natural for people to say, what is new? And also, there are certain things that should be source of strength for us, like our size and diversity. We have not managed our diversity very well. Like the author said, homogeneity is not necessarily a blessing. And diversity, plurality, is not necessarily a cause. So it's what you do to it. What we have done in Nigeria is that we have managed to twin the differences with opportunities. So if you are different, it also means you are kind of excluded or you are included. So you have two tracks in Nigeria. You see the way in which when you are different, when you don't belong to the mainstream, you are excluded. And also you have an incentive to continue to differentiate yourself because that gives you a seat at the table. In terms of how I think we need to proceed, there are three things that I think we need to pay attention to as a country. The first one is everybody talks about leadership, but we don't talk enough about the capacity for governance across the board. And when people talk about issues of decentralization, the assumption is that when you move more powers and responsibilities to the subnational units, when you move more money to the subnational units, that the capacity is there. I'm not convinced about that. And it's across the board. It's not like, okay, because the center is more capable. Yes, you can make that argument. That's the first thing. The second thing is our conception of power and politics is very dysfunctional. Professor Olukoshi eloquently mentioned that in some other societies, politics is about dignity of the human being. That is not our conception of it in Nigeria. Our conception of power is that of domination, is that of predation, and all of that. It's that of taking care of yourself and the people who look like you, either in terms of religion or in terms of ethnicity, and all of that. So we need to change that. The third thing we need to take care of is, I think I've lost my track, but I will stop there, for now. But we need to manage our differences better. We need to pay more attention, to governance, and we need to interrogate some of these assumptions that we made about our country.
Interrogate some of these assumptions that we make of our country. And going straight to Yemi, the book is not just about challenges, but it profiles solutions of hope, unity, and engagement. And you have been known to be very active as a citizen. I'd like to hear your perspective of what you think greatness should be based on Professor Lukoshi's conversations and that of the reviewer. You've remembered? Yes.
Sorry, I just lost my train of thoughts. I'm very sorry about that.
Yeah,
I think
it's because we are rushing you, so we won't rush you. Go
The
ahead.
last thing, which I think is very important, which I think the author also mentioned many times, is the need to have elite consensus about, our vision of a society, our vision of politics, our vision of development. Without that, we're just...
elite leadership consensus. Yemi?
So repeat your question. I lost my train of thought.
Yes, all right. So it's basically about the fact that this book talks about the challenges, but also profiles solutions of hope, unity, and engagement. And you have been out there as a very active citizen. What does it take for us to engage, for us to be part of the conversation, especially with your work that you've been doing over the years? What does greatness mean beyond the leaders to others who follow?
Thank you. Again, congratulations, Governor Fayemi, Mrs. Fayemi, and good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I think I'll pick up from where Professor Lukoshi stopped, and this conversation about leaders and followers. There's a phrase that's used, the governors, not governors in literal terms, but those who are in leadership and the governed. And there's a sense that leadership, well, we're expecting better quality from followers. And I think what I'd say that we need to be clear about as citizens is really that, are we ready? Like defining, again, as Mr. Adio just said, what we want as the elite. It's extremely important for books like this to be written, to share ideas about what could be improved. But the people who have access to this book are very, 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 very small percentage of Nigerians. Now, in the context of that, then our expectations of followers need to be so moderated, because followers can only give what they have. And in a country that's the poverty capital of the world and the attendant issues with illiteracy, our expectations should be moderated, I'll say that. And to Mr. Adio's point, the need for elite consensus, I think, is extremely critical, because ultimately, it is Nigeria's elite that must decide where we want Nigeria to go, what we want Nigeria to look like, and Professor Lukoshi's work, the dignity that transforms nations and a journey of self-respect. We're 20 years plus in our democracy, but we've skirted around very difficult issues. Governor Fayemi refers to them in the book: issue of a new constitution, adapt or write a completely new one, issues of restructuring and devolution of powers. You cannot build a nation that doesn't exist. So until we've decided what nation we want as Nigerians, who we are as Nigerians, respecting ourselves, then can we then begin to build? And that journey, I'm not quite sure that we've decided that we're ready. Maybe this is the start of that, as the book says, Unfinished Greatness, that we are recognizing our greatness and we want to start on that journey. But until we decide that we want a better Nigeria, we decide that we deserve a better Nigeria, and most importantly, we decide we're willing to do the work for this Nigeria, we won't go very far.
Willing to do the work for this Nigeria. The last panelist has spoken. Indy, I'd like you to take it up from there concerning how a nation can go to greatness without a quantum number of its population in the area of gender. How do we go to greatness? How do we think of greatness without one half of our agenda? And how do we proceed if we do not take that half with us? It's International Women's Day on March 8th. Let's go.
So I think I have this written in a book on Nigeria at 60. I think His Excellency had something to say in that book too. And it's that it will be foolhardy for us to say this nation is going somewhere when half of the population is left behind. And I just, without being patronizing, just trying to make an example of what half of a team looks like. And remembering, yes, I'm always going to do this, Erelu Bisi Fayemi, and all that she has been able to do. And you're looking at this, that if this team does not have that, what would it look like? a person who has created an organization whose funds have, $56 million for women organizations across Africa, who has experience across peace and conflict resolution, the CSO sector, gender mainstreaming. And you're thinking, if this team didn't have that person, would it look like this? And then we pose the question to Nigeria. If Nigeria does not have more women being able to pull their weight, what would it look like? But we don't really have to ask, because we can see what it looks like when women are not allowed in certain spaces. And I always say this thing, and I say it in pidgin. Nigerians, we know they tire, especially for Nigerian men. Leadership is skewed. The quality of policy making, the quality of laws, the quality of decision making is tilted. And it's showing in every other thing. The results are there for us to see. We can't possibly be saying that there is going to be a great nation, but 49%, 50%, stay back. You're not able to do anything. Your rights don't mean anything. Be in this corner. For any part of the country, I'm from Kaduna State, I'll tell you that the implications are far-reaching. You can draw a straight line from this decision to insurgency, to extreme poverty, and we can't continue to do like that. So I would say that we can't write Nigeria's future. We cannot create that place we want to see. We cannot be that Nigeria if Nigerian women, and I would say it in this gathering, knowing very well that many people do not believe in equality. But I would say that we cannot get there if Nigeria does not look at gender equality as a solution. Thank you.
Does not look at gender equality as a solution. Hamzat, you've been working in the communities, in the rural areas. Talk to us about what it means, what greatness means to those people. When we come in here and sit as a group and talk from an elite point of view, the rural community, are they part of this conversation of greatness? What are the obstacles for them? And what does it mean for Nigeria to be great, and what's their role?
I think before we even talk about people elite, we're all from a community, we're all from a village, we're all grassroots people, irrespective of where we are or the fact that we're all in Abuja. I think that there's a big disconnect with what is happening on the ground in various grassroots and what is happening in our policy and decision-making tables. And I believe that the solution must be homegrown. The solution must be local. And I believe we need to talk to ourselves more. In 2016, because I like to tell a story, in 2016, at that time, Governor FAYEMI was the minister for solid minerals. There was lead poisoning outbreak in Niger State. At that time, 200 children were already dead, and 300 was at risk. I issued a statement, and in my statement, categorically, I told him I was going to hold him accountable if he don't rise to that challenge. At the Federal Executive Council, they had a meeting, and they put a budget of over 300 million under the Ministry of Environment, which Amina Mohammed was chairing at that time. And this money was released and used in this community. And for me, why this happened was, one, there was leadership, there was empathy, there was action, but then there was a connection between what civil society, what activists were doing, and how we're able to communicate what the decisions are being done in Abuja to these communities. What communities don't have is they don't have ownership. They don't feel a sense of ownership of what we do as politicians or as civil society or as private sector. If community members see this as theirs, then we can all go to bed. You talk about insecurity, you talk about insurgency. The only reason why people will kill each other is because they don't see you as their brother. So if today we agree in this room that the unfinished greatness is that we will not only talk to ourselves, but we will talk to people who don't look like us or who don't even speak the kind of language that we speak, where we would not discriminate everybody and first see ourselves as humans, as Nigerians. For me, there is no collective vision. No collective vision. If we can agree that our collective vision and that unfinished business today is, let us even go back to our various communities. Let us remove our barbariga. Let us fold our arms. Let's go into the hinterlands and just sit down and listen. Because we talk a lot, we don't listen. Let us listen to what our grassroots people are saying, because the solutions are within their reach and their powers. But I believe also that unfinished business is unifying us and bringing that person who would take us through that journey. Because life itself is a transition. You know, I talked about 2016, and today FAYEMI is a governor. We don't know what tomorrow holds, but let us see life as a transition, and let us play that role and rewrite the kind of history that we want for Nigeria.
The kind of history we want for Nigeria, Mr. Waziri Adio, very quickly, is leadership a vexed question? Is leadership a vexed question in Nigeria? And you did hear Yemi when she talked about followership and what is it that they have to offer. If they have nothing to give, then what is followership like? Is leadership a vexed question? Quickly.
Well, two things I will say to that. One, when we talk about leadership, we think about people in elected or appointive positions. That's not the only definition of leadership. Leadership is actually the capacity to mobilize people to change, right? And all of us, leadership is not the same thing as authority. All of us have the capacity in our different environment. Look at what Hamza did. That is leadership. So leadership is an act, is what people do, and it's something that all of us are capable of doing. So that's the first thing I would say. So the second thing, which is my main thing, that I think we don't talk about enough, is capacity to get things done. The capacity is very thin across the board. We don't pay enough attention to that. You can have, people who exercise leadership, right? Mobilize people and all of that, but at the end of the day, you need to get things done. And if we don't pay attention to that, we're just dancing around.
Thank you very much, Ndi. I'd like to come to you with, you've been working in development communication. What is the role of the media in galvanizing nationhood?
So I would say that with respect to the media, we often, depending on what side of the divide and who is doing wrong, we like the media to be unbiased. But the media has a duty, and that is bias. Yes, the media has to be on the side of justice. At any given time, it has to risk it, it has to stand by the people. And so I'm looking at Nigerian media. Am I allowed to? I can usually go on the media. I'm looking at Nigerian media, and I would really want more. That at every point in time, I understand the way Nigeria is. We're a rent-seeking country. Everybody knows everybody, from politics to activism to everything. To be honest, we are all friends. That's in the morning we are criticizing this governor, and by afternoon, you're on the phone call with him deciding on another decision, right, or on another thing. It's all a circle. But in all that, every single one of us owes Nigeria something. Let's bring it down to the person. I'd written a small statement about what greatness is, and I would like all of us to apply that. Greatness is to create, the ability to create, to see that there are vacuums and I want to do something about it, or to have a vision of what a thing should be. And everybody should do that. What is our vision? What is the media's vision of Nigeria? What is an average governor's vision of Nigeria? What is my own vision of Nigeria? And then greatness is to be that person. That if they say, if there is one person that can get this done, and they're mentioning names, even if it narrows down to one, it should be you. And greatness should be that. And as a young person, I should speak to something else. Greatness is the ability to create people. To say that I recognize that there's something in me, and I'm doing this, but then again, that savior's complex or something shouldn't start and begin with me. I want to create more. This is, again, the backbone of intellectualism. One person shouldn't be doing it all. Let's continue to create more.
I think Waziri's point about building capacity is where we're talking about. And when you hold a position and you are able to make more people great,
yes,
then that's what it's about. Yemi, let me come to you very quickly. I'd like for us to look at one of the SDGs, which is basically about collaboration, and listening to Ndi talk about, in the morning we're talking about a governor, and in another breath we're trying to do things together. The collaborative space between governance, those who are governing, and the civil society space, real quick.
Very much so. I think Professor Lukoshi talked about the context, that we're not aware of the history that we're coming from and the context within which we operate. Indy spoke about all of us, and same with Hamzi, all of us being members of the community. To the degree that it's about Nigeria, we shouldn't be on different sides. We should all be working together, governed, followers, whatever language we want to use. But the challenge therein, and I think I heard Governor FAYEMI speak to that at another function, is that we all have to agree on an irreducible minimum. That there must be something that we all agree on. And once we have that, we all want education. So if Governor FAYEMI, I disagree maybe on security, but if we agree on education, then we must be able to sit at the table and have that conversation. So the space for collaboration is there, but unfortunately, the nature of our politics is winner takes all. So you get 49% of the votes, but the person who gets 51% fills his cabinet with everybody that's from his political party. Everybody who got 49% feels left out of the room. Now, if Nigeria is the goal, then the people who got 49% should not be locked out of the room because they have something to bring to the table for Nigeria or for Ekiti or for Sokoto or for Lagos. So the idea of collaboration, if Nigeria is the key, then we will collaborate. But if it's about party or personal interest, most certainly we won't. And that's not the way it should be.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about youth leadership, especially that we hear about intergenerational issues, especially that we know that you have been involved in Follow the Money across Africa, holding leaders accountable. Talk to me about youth leadership, and we'll bring this to a close with your comment, and then we'll go around the room for a 30 seconds last line. Let's go.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up, and I think we need to change the narrative about youth. So the African Youth Charter say 18 to 35. The new Nigerian youth policy say 18 to 29. The UN says 16 to 24. But politically speaking, and reality, speaking reality, a 60-year-old is still called a youth. A 50, 60, 70-year-old is still called a youth.
I feel pretty young, so I don't know what you're trying to do. Keep going.
But again, for me, the solutions lie amongst my peer. Youth in leadership, and I agree, with Waziri, you don't have to occupy political position for you to make change happen, But first, as a young person, you need to recognize that first you are a solution. And then we need to consolidate, because if we do consolidate as young people, we would not only set Nigeria on the pathway towards greatness, we would decide her fate from today. Because for me, I believe that the solutions and the leadership is young people. And young people are the leaders of today, not the leaders of tomorrow. So let us first start seeing ourselves as young people, as leaders, and let's also have that intergenerational conversation and dialogue. I don't want an older person to see me and say, just sit down there and wait for your time. No. Why can't you say, come, let me teach you, let me mentor you, let me guide you. That is what I want. And as you guide me and you mentor me, don't take over how I think. No, let me have an independence of my thoughts. Let me have an ownership of my thoughts, but shape it, guide me, build me, and let us consolidate, let us work together. I believe that if we as young people can consolidate, can work with other people, I believe that, Nigeria would go places. Nigeria would do great things. But first, I think we should stop that notion. Don't call anybody above 35. Please, let's not call them youths. They are young, but please, they're not youths. So that youths can start taking their place in leadership and in position. And when you see a young person, bring them closer, mentor them. Today, I am where I am, not because of the education I enjoyed, but because there are people who have deliberately invested in my capacity and capability to deliver.
People who have invested in your capacity to deliver. I saw Waziri nodding his head, and I know also it's not just enough for the older person to say, come. Some of us learned by going. The younger person must also go to the older person to be mentored. And I know that Dr. Kayode FAYEMI is one in front of so many other people who accepted to be mentored. Please look around the room and see the number of people who are still here as a result of these conversations. Dr. Kayode FAYEMI has reached old, young, and we heard from Mr. Chairman. And that is the reason why we are all still seated here. Mr. Adio, you will take the opening for the closing, and you will have your 30 seconds one-liner across the room.
Okay. I think there's every reason to to be despondent, to be cynical. But that is very easy. It's the easy route, right? And despondency and cynicism are not strategy. So we need to continue to believe in this country. I actually read this book, and this is my major takeaway from it, and I like that so much. That we need to believe that a different Nigeria is possible. But for that to be possible, it will not happen by accident. We all have work to do. And we must be ready to roll up our sleeves and get the work done.
Get the work done, you mean?
One liner. I guess it will be a question to all of us. When will enough be enough? When will we be tired of repeating the same issues at several conferences, talking and talking and talking? When will we be tired of a greatness yet unveiled, unfinished, unexplored, unexperienced? When? And when we do say enough is enough, then Nigeria will achieve its greatness.
Time for action, indeed.
So I'm going to speak to the elections, 2023 elections, the elephant in the room. Over 47% of voters are women. Over 50% of voters are young people. It means that elections are now overwhelmingly decided by a certain group of people, women and young people, and that we must take advantage of this power and no longer be spectators in activities such as this. So the elections, for young people, this is our election. In fact, this is the election that ushers out a certain class of politicians. And we must understand what that power is, take full charge of it, and make decisions based on that, and also based on candidates that have shown via their works, via their lives, that they are a working manifesto. Thank you.
A working manifesto. Hamza?
Politics is everything. Young people, youth, let's play politics. How wrong can we get? We are where we are today because a lot of us thought that politics is dirty and let us not play it. No, 2023 is a game changer. Get your permanent voter's card, come out and vote. But most importantly, let's play this politics. Before now, I used to say that power is taken, either by force or democratic means. Now, with my experience and exposure, power is actually created and shared. Let's create power together and make Nigeria great. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Mr. Chairman, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, your very erudite panel, Waziri Adio, Yemi Adamolekun, Indikato, Hamzat Lawal, panelists at this book presentation on Finished Greatness. Congratulations to all of you. We all heard them, and I think they did an absolutely brilliant job for the short time that they had. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chairman, sir, it's time now for us to go quickly to the point where we present we have the presentation of the book, and I will be inviting the panelists up after a while to come and be part of the photography. I'd like to call the Chief of Staff to Mr. President and representative of the President. I'd like to call on the author and his lovely wife. I'd like to call on former Chairman APC, Chief Bisi Akonde, Chairman Ekiti State Council of Traditional Rulers, representative of Governors and Vice Chair, Nigeria Governors Forum, Right Honorable Waziri Tambuwal, the Deputy Governor of Ekiti State. I'll ask them to step forward to where the book is covered over there and cut the ribbon. So let me start again. The representative of Mr. President to please step forward. The representative of Governors and Vice Chair NGF, Right Honorable Waziri Tambuwal, Chairman Ekiti State Council of Traditional Rulers. There would be an opportunity for governors to take a photograph, but this time is just to cut that. And after we cut that, we'll take photographs with the governor. Former Chairman APC, Chief Bisi Akonde, Chairman Ekiti Council of Traditional Rulers, author, wife of author, and the Deputy Governor of Ekiti State. You are approaching that place over there to cut that tape. And after the tape is cut, the governors will have a photograph with the author up here. So let us do the cutting first, and then after that, there will be photographs. The symbolic cutting. Now, we've got the scissors and we've got the tape. There's a rotating device there, and after it's cut, we're going to ask all of you to come up, at which point all the governors will join them up here. Your Excellencies, the governors should please stand by, after which the honorable ministers will be coming up for the book presentation. Please be aware that the book itself will not be available to you, but there will be cards given by the ushers for you to sign up your commitment and your request for the book. Once that has been cut, the governors will ascend to this portion. Your Excellencies, the governors, to first step forward, and then I'll call on the distinguished guests to join. The governors who are here and the representative of governors who are here, please come forward. The honorable ministers will join after now.
This door will open. Wait, move this way. Let's just move it this way. Okay.
Can those who have stepped up collect a copy of the book and display? I'd like the governors to please come up. I'd like to call on the honorable ministers to please come up. Please hold up the book. The honorable ministers to please come up. Former Senate President to please join them. The photographs are in batches. Once the governors have had their photographs, please allow the honorable ministers to come up. The distinguished former Senate President. Those who have taken photographs to please step down for the others. Those who have taken photographs to step back for the others. I'd like to call on once this group has stepped down, the panelists will come up. The panelists and speaker, keynote speaker, book reviewer will come up. If you have already taken the photograph, I'd like you to step down. Erelu, please remain where you are. Panelist and keynote speaker, quickly. Panelist, keynote speaker, and book reviewer, quickly. And after that, we will take members of the Ekiti State House of Assembly.
Hello.
And that will be the last one. After we close, we'll do a lot more photographs. Can we have the panelists and the speakers, please? Panelists and the speakers. and then members of the Ekiti State House of Assembly and the Speaker.
Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Can I see the speakers? I cannot see Dr. Abba. Dr. Abba, please step forward. This way, this way, this way. Come this way. Waziri. Dr. Fayemi, you need to be in the middle of our photograph. Okay, if you have been in a photograph already, please step forward so that the panelists and the speakers can join this photograph.
That's okay, that's okay.
Very much, panelists. The royal fathers are behind me and they will take this photograph now, after which members of the House of Assembly, and that will be it for now. Photograph for this session is the Speaker and members of Ekiti State House of Assembly. After that, we'll take other pictures. Please make your way quickly up there once the traditional rulers have stepped down. Thank you very much. Just the Speaker and Ekiti State House of Assembly, and that will be the last photograph before we take the photographs after Dr. Fayemi has spoken. Please be aware that there will be other photographs, but just the Speaker and the Ekiti State House of Assembly members now, and that will be all for now. Once this photograph is over, we're inviting the author to speak. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, can we clear the front row? We're now about to invite the author of the book, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, His Excellency, Chairman of Nigeria Governors Forum, my brother, and the author of this phenomenal book.
Is it on now?
Please, let's settle down so we can listen to the man who brought us all here.
Thank you very much. The day is far gone, and I think we need to allow our guests to still spend time doing other things. Thank you, my sisters from Ekiti. Your Excellency, the chairman of this occasion, our father, General Yakubu Gowon, Your Excellencies, my brother governors who are here, Excellency the Deputy Governor of Ekiti State, members of the National Assembly here, particularly representatives of the Senate President and the Speaker, honorable ministers of the Federal Republic. I think the Chief of Staff, His Excellency, the representative of Mr. President, my teacher, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, is still here. Baba Awa Omo KKK, our father, Chief Bisi Akonde, is here. Very many distinguished people, my darling wife and family members, political associates and friends, the keynote speaker and the panelists, and our book reviewer, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is not easy not to be overwhelmed by the outpouring of goodwill and encouragement that has been so generously extended to me at home and abroad on the occasion of the public presentation of Unfinished Greatness, Envisioning a New Nigeria. In part, your presence here today in numbers and from all walks of life, and the online participation by numerous other compatriots and friends is a direct testament to the fact that despite the difficulties we face as a country, the Nigerian idea and ideal remains strong and indestructible. And that is really the essence of what I have devoted a good part of my life and career to. An unshakable faith in the fact that we are better off together and in unity than in fragments and pieces. State and nation building all over the world have been and remain a permanent work in progress, ours inclusive. Although some countries may enjoy a long span of relative tranquility, the historical fact also needs always to be remembered and restated that stability and progress require the deployment of deliberate effort by citizens and those entrusted with leadership to advance the national agenda regardless of challenges. Even at that, there are no preordained guarantees of success at all times. Every country goes through high and low moments in their historical journey. When countries experience their high moments, it is incumbent on leaders to capture the opportunities that are offered to advance the frontiers of the national agenda. When, as is inevitable, bad days come, leadership must assume the responsibility for keeping the ideals of the national agenda high on the radar, provide citizens with a genuine basis for hope that better days lie ahead, and courageously undertake whatever reforms that are required by the times and for the achievement of the better days. Over the last few years, our beloved country has been buffeted on all sides by a myriad of problems. I have, like many of us here, present and online, experienced discomfort at the ease with which cheap and populist options, which yesterday may have been laughed off as fringe ideas, have gained in influence as to become mainstream. In the meantime, those who have held on to the goal of Nigerian oneness and unity have found themselves pushed to the margins and placed on the defensive. Matters have not been helped by the inflammatory partisanship which many in leadership positions have adopted in part to score points against opponents, but also in order to be recognized by their communities as truly representing their concerns. Too many seem to have forgotten that leaders should lead and not simply reproduce the base sentiments and narrow perspectives that we encounter on the hustings. Leading means understanding the local concerns that are exercising the minds of our constituents, placing these in a wider context, which as leaders we're uniquely positioned to see, and formulate approaches that provide a meaningful and responsible way forward. And I want to be clear, we are faced with a conjuncture of complex and uncommon challenges which must be confronted openly, head-on, and purposefully, rather than being denied, swept under the carpet, or simply wished away. In courageously admitting to and seeking ways to redress the challenges, however, it is important to remember that we come from somewhere. And in the journey we embarked upon as a country, we have scored many wins, and a web of interdependencies bind us ever closely together. These realities should serve to condition and modulate our responses to the real challenges we face, not with a view to throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but in a determined effort to filter the bathwater so that it is purged of the impurities that could discomfort the baby. It is this approach of seeking to build on our many gains as a country and a people, whilst recognizing and engaging our contemporary difficulties, that underpins this book. We have had moments of greatness in all spheres of our national life and human endeavor. We have also seen many difficult days in our forward march to even greater heights. Problems must be understood to be part of our unfinished quest for greatness. And greatness has to be our permanent watchword as the only destiny that is acceptable to us and global Africa, which honestly looks up to us for leadership. Nigeria will surely fulfill destiny and do so as a united country, built on justice, built on freedom, and on equity and the rule of law. This is the national agenda of our times. I invite each and every one of us to partake in it. For national rebirth, we must deliver. I wish at this point to sincerely thank you all for coming to grace this occasion or joining the proceedings online. Without preempting, the colleague who will deliver the vote of thanks, please permit me to say a special thank you to the chairman of this occasion, our esteemed father and elder statesman and former head of state, His Excellency General Yakubu Gowon. General is the embodiment of that indomitable Nigerian spirit, and we all must, like him, be ready to go on with one Nigeria. My sincere appreciation also goes to our president and our leader, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented here by his Chief of Staff, for his unalloyed support and his kindness to me always, and particularly also in asking his Chief of Staff, our highly respected teacher and distinguished Professor Ibrahim Gambari, to represent him. My gratitude also goes to the Vice President, who is also ably represented, to my leaders who have come to grace this occasion, particularly Papa Akonde. I am immensely grateful, and to my fellow brother governors who have always been very supportive of my leadership of our forum. I am, as always, extremely grateful for your leadership and support. And to honorable ministers of the Federal Republic, National Assembly leaders, our esteemed and revered traditional and faith leaders, brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, and fellow travelers in the Nigerian journey, please accept my sincere appreciation. My family, especially my wife, has been a lifelong pillar of support in my journey through life, and I owe them a debt of gratitude. Finally, I thank the keynote speaker, my longtime friend, Professor Bayo Olukoshi, the book reviewer, Dr. Joaba, and the panelists for enlivening our proceedings with their brilliant insight. I can't leave this place without thanking my very good friend, the Director of Ceremonies, Eugenia Abu, for doing such a wonderful job. And for all the people who are in the planning committee, I thank you immensely for all your efforts. Thank you for attention, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Congratulations to His Excellency Dr. Kayode FAYEMI. We all have a duty to build Nigeria together. Your Excellency, the chairman of the occasion, I would like to come forward to give you the microphone for your closing remark. Would you like to go up? Please, let's give a round of applause to the chairman of the occasion, a soldier, an officer, and a gentleman. Mr. Chairman, sir.
Stay here. No.
It's about discipline, isn't it? Thank you, Your Excellency. The closing remarks of Mr. Chair.
Your Excellencies, may I say all distinguished, eminent and distinguished guest participants, may I say how glad I am to be here to give a closing remark. Do you want a long lecture? Come along, say it. No, I thought I was going to hear no. Sorry, okay. Now, honestly, I thought after what we have heard from Professor Olukoshi, and the book reviewer, Joe Abba, and all the panelists, and then, of course, to hear from the author himself, His Excellency Governor Kayode FAYEMI. Do you think that there is any need for me to add a word or any word, on this excellent performance by this team? I only want to say thank you to them, very, very much for the excellent presentation that they have given, and to say how great it is. The only thing I'm going to add is that I'm a great believer in Nigeria, and I believe in Nigeria. And those who say Nigeria is not yet a nation, no. Today, I want you all to accept that Nigeria is a nation. It's a nation that we have. It is imperfect. And Governor FAYEMI, has written a book to tell us that this country, this nation is great, but there is still unfinished greatness, that this country has a lot to put right to make it the perfect country that you all love. So all I'm going to leave with you is that I'm with all the speakers here today and His Excellency the Governor. And I would like you all to live here believing that it is Nigeria and that you can contribute to make it even greater than what it is today. Yes, we've been improving all along from independence, from colonial to independence to today. We've been making some progress. Yes, we might have failed, somewhere, but I believe that Nigeria has a right to continue to exist, to continue to be a nation that we are all proud of. So I would like to end by saying once again, Thank you, Governor FAYEMI. Thank you and your dear wife for the support that she has given you. And thank you, all the speakers here today, and to all of you, your excellencies, etc., that have come from far and wide, and to all those who are on Zoom, wherever you are. We thank you for participating in this great event. I hope you will all take this book, get a copy of this book for your own education and for the education of all others that you think need to know about it. So I say thank you. Thank you, Eugenia, for doing so well. Thank you. May God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Chairman of the occasion has spoken, and we're bringing this occasion to a slow close. Let's give General Yakubu Gowon a great round of applause. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Excellency. I am, at this point, going to quickly invite, for the vote of thanks, the Deputy Governor of Ekiti State, His Excellency Otumba Bisi Egbeyemi. Egbeyemi, Your Excellency, my apologies. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Praise be to God. The chairman of this event, our father and our past president, General Yakubu Gowon. I'm to thank you and everybody. But first of all, I want to thank the Lord for making this event a reality. And after you, sir, I want to thank all the governors that are here and some that were represented by their nominees here today. We are grateful to you all. We thank all the members of the National Executive Council, all the members of the State Executive Council. We thank our brother, I will say my brother, our leader, Uncle Bisi Akande, the father of the youth. Most especially, I want to thank the man who is the chief of staff to the president, our erudite Professor Gambari, who is incidentally a former teacher of my governor. People have been referring to you and have been respecting you. May that continue in your life, sir. I want to thank all the KBACs that are present here, the emirs, the chiefs, members of the National Assembly, members of the State Assembly, and some party leaders, especially chairmen of all the parties from the states. They are all represented here. I don't want to mention you one by one. We won't go. We'll be here for long. We thank God. I want to say we thank our governor for bringing us together here. And I want to sincerely thank the wife for the supportive role that she has been playing in his life and in our lives. Not only in his life alone, he's been helping us in the state tremendously. We thank her. Our prayer is that God will grant you mercy journey to your destinations. We know some of you came by air, some on road. There shall be no accident in the name of Jesus. There shall be no accident in the name of Allah. God bless you all. Once again, on behalf of my governor, I thank you all for coming. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Otumba FAYEMI. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your thankfulness to all those who have gathered. And with that, we come to the official close of this event. But let me remind you that the request card is here. Everybody should fill this request card to order for the book. It's time now for us to take our closing prayer, which is the second stanza of the national anthem, and after which we shall take the national anthem to bring this event to a close. Please call for your request card. May we rise for the national closing prayer. O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and living just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Amen. The national anthem. Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Eugenia Abu. It has been a pleasure to serve. Good afternoon.
Thank you.